Hey everybody, welcome back to Sergeant's Talk TV. I'm on so many channels, I almost forget what to say when I'm saying it. I'm Big Mike.
Normal size Jason.
Yeah. Although you were really small this weekend. I got small. Remember that back? That was a thing that people said. It got small when you got drunk or whatever. But
there was few times. I mean, we had to make sure the cold snacks didn't get warm.
Cold snacks, yes. But guys, the last couple of days, I have been just exhausted. Carrie's exhausted.
Yeah. Y'all did an amazing job, by the way. That everything, the way it was organized. I mean, there was a little bit of chaos because evidently people didn't understand where the shelter was. So
yeah.
But
I will tell you that one lady talked to me and she said, well, when do the classes start? I said, ma'am, this is a meetup. Okay. This is a meetup. You're thinking of an expo. An expo is where they do classes and you learn how to pluck a chicken and how you quarter out a pig or how you grow a garden and all this kind of stuff. A meetup is where you go, you chill out, you network, you talk to people, and she was a subscriber, and you talk to people that you see on the YouTubes, and creators get to meet subscribers, and creators to creators. They do collaborations, they work out stuff. They just enjoy their time together. That's what a meetup is. And she goes, oh, I didn't know that. And I said, well, I mean, have you been on our channel? And she said, no. What channel do you have? And I told her, and she goes, oh, I watched 3 Mississippi. I said, well, that's cool. I said, they're here. She goes, I've been looking for them. Where are they at? I said, you see that little brunette right there? I said, that's Sid. She goes, oh my gosh. And like I wasn't even there, she took off.
Boom.
But that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So subscribers can talk to the people they enjoy watching and learn and meet other people. And at a meetup, you actually get to know who these people are,
Yeah. Well, and I think the greatest part of it is, that hangout part of it. Like you said, the expos are there to, like, they're scheduled. There's an hour by hour something going on with classes and doing these things. And that's great for an expo.
Yeah.
But when you come to a meetup, and I think, more for us, right, as the creators wanting to come out and meet our subscribers and hang out with, channels that we've made friends with, that really meetups are the only time we get to hang out with them. And that interaction, I mean, I know there was a couple times over the weekend that, run into a couple people and they were excited, and you hear them, right? You're sitting there having a conversation with somebody, and then someone's all excited, like, oh my God, there's 3 Mississippi. Oh my God, there's MT Homestead. Like it was awesome. And I think that that's why we love going to them, is when you get to see that reaction. Because, there's the other thing when people only get to see you on videos, and then, they see you in real life and they're like, wait a minute, I expected, thought you'd be taller, or, there's always that change that the camera puts on.
Sure.
So yeah,
it's smaller on film.
Well, and that's funny because, I mean, honestly, there's no way of necessarily telling, like, until we, had talked to you before about, like, I remember the first time that we were like, hey, we need to get you a shirt. What size shirt? And you're like, hey, this. And I'm like, I know they call him Big Mike, but there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, and then when we got to meet you at the first meetup a couple years ago, I was like, okay, Battle Buddy's right. Okay, yep, we're.
But I'm going to tell you, and let me start this off. Is we have pinned the link at the top, and if you went to the meetup or you have questions, we invite you to click on that, come up on panel, so we can have a discussion. We'll answer all questions. We'll be truthful about it. And if you were there, we'd like to hear about your experience at the meetup. Okay. Just to start this off correctly. But I will tell you that the planning for the 2026 Mid-America YouTube Meetup started before we had this meetup. And I don't know if people really realize how much work it takes, the coordination with the parks, with getting things together, spreading out the cost of it, instead of it all hitting at one time. So your host bears the brunt of the financial part of all this stuff. And so Terry and I said we want to keep doing this, but we spread it out over the year, like, giveaways. And if we see something, we go, hey, grab that. It's for a kid. We'll purchase it, yada, yada, yada. And then there's the support people, channels and subscribers that want to pitch in, and coordinating with them, coordinating with everybody. We do that throughout the year, and then 6 months out is when we start pushing it on the YouTubes. Okay. And every week when we go live, we talk about it, and then we ask, hey, if you want to help out with the registration. Rebecca Touched by Yarn handled the registration, making sure everybody had tickets for the giveaways, that they signed into the sign-in book, and things like that. Or people on Blackstones that are cooking for the entire masses. Now, you can remember something. In 2023 was the biggest one. We had over 300 people there. Okay. That park was filled.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Arkansas for Mid-America, although they called it the Arkansas River Valley, blah, blah, blah. But we said, okay, and that's fine. They're putting it on. They're dealing with the brunt of the financial part and setting it all up and stuff. You can call it whatever you want. And then coming back here in 2025, we had 179 people that we know of that signed in the sign-in book, and we had them list either, how many kids you brought, and if you're a creator and you brought your spouse, and people were doing that. Most people were doing it, and I looked at somebody and I go, oh, like such and such signed in, but I know I talked to the gal's husband. He's there. So we came to 179. And that was still a lot of people at a small sponsored meetup like Mid-America.
Yeah.
Do we want it to get bigger? I mean, it's fine. We planned for 300. That was our goal. And when it comes to 300, that means food and drink and water and plates and cups and forks and knives and you name it. But I want to thank everybody that pitched in. The Leonards brought that big blue cooler. That's always a godsend.
That thing was awesome. That was a game changer to have that there. I was like, how do I find one of those?
Yeah, he found it at some auction somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he found it, but so that Tony and Angie, man, they were on cooking. They were just a blessing. And then you got Tim and Dana Mason pitched in. Wendy at Hardknack Farms. Everybody helped clean up every day after meals and stuff like that. And then when we got done, I put a thing out, said, hey, if you're in need of stuff, please come over to the pavilion. And we gave away bottles of ketchup and mustard and relish, and we gave away buns and bread, and it was everything that was excess food wise. There were people who need it, and I said, take it home. I mean, you got 8 kids. Take what you need, and that makes me feel good. I don't want to take it home here. I want to take home less than I brought. You know what I mean? Because
how do you do that? Because somehow we brought home more than we brought, and I'm
you brought home a good leather purse too.
Well, not everybody could win it, but I did.
Yes,
and then my wife stole it as soon as she came back.
Oh yeah, but it makes us. I always tell people, be kind to one another and help somebody in need. And I truly try to live by that. I try to help out as anybody and everybody that we can. And there was some people that financially they couldn't make it. I said, if that's the only reason you're not coming, let me help you out. Okay, whether it's a campsite, whether it's gas, whatever. Because meetups is about, we always use this loose term called family. You don't get to pick your family, you get to pick your friends. And out of those friends that you feel really close to, that's family. Okay, friends that are your family. And everybody that I come in contact with, I consider them family to me, and I would help them out. I'm sure they would help me out if I needed it. And that's how you build relationships on the YouTubes and by going to meetups and having that personal connection. And that's special to me, because I live in the middle of nowhere, just like you do. And your whole life revolves around the friends you make on YouTube, other than people down the road and you wave to them when you go by. That's just the Southern way that we do things. And it just makes you feel good that you get to spend that much time with all these people. And absolutely, I was tired. The 2 new hips, I had to come home and oil them. But it was fun. I had a great time. And that's why Terry and I do this every year. And anybody that wants to pitch in for the 2026, which is going to be at Lake Texoma, which is the lake that's on the border. The Red River makes the lake, and it's on the border of Texas and Oklahoma. Half the lake's in Texas, half the lake's in Oklahoma. So that's where the 2026 meetup is, May 15th, 16th, and 17th of 2026 is the 2026 Mid-America YouTube Meetup. So wanted everybody to know that, because we did put it out for at Sunday at breakfast. So before everybody started taking off. Well, they took off on Saturday because of the storm.
Yeah, we were like, well, you watched it, and the giveaways and stuff were done, and all of a sudden it was like, phew. But realizing that, hey, everyone there was all kind of keeping an eye on that weather app. They're sitting
Yeah.
here going, "What's the radar say? What's the radar
Oh yeah.
say?" Because
Well,
yeah,
people come to Oklahoma and they don't know, because we have storms here, and there's the possibility of it. I mean, we've been in some horrific storms here and no tornadoes, and we've been in lighter ones and tornadoes all over the place. It's all about the cold meeting the warm, and the spinning and the hook echoes and stuff like that is what you got to watch. And if you live in Oklahoma, you learn to read the radar. Okay.
Yeah.
And every news agency stops whatever they're doing, and they go straight to weather when one of these big things come up. So yeah. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm really still tired.
Yeah.
I drove all the way home, but we had to stop because I was not doing good.
Yeah.
And we didn't get home until 12:55 a.m. Monday morning.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you start hitting the rumble strips on both sides, you need to stop.
Yeah. That's time to pull over.
Yeah.
It's time to pull over and sleep in your car.
I want to thank you for all the help you gave you and Ronald. All right. I'm going to tell you something. Ronald turned himself into the sanitation man.
Oh, yes, he did.
He was hauling big old 33-gallon trash bags to the dumpster he just did it. Nobody had to tell him. He just started hauling trash. And I'm good, man. Thank you, so I didn't have to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our parents has always taught us to be of service to others.
Yeah.
They always did.
Yep. And that's good home raising. That's what you got to do. So what did you like, and what could improve for Mid-America?
I liked when you asked me to do the tickets, because I'd never done that before, and it gave me a chance to be able to meet everyone.
Yes, you did.
That was there, because when I seen the Eddy family come, I was so happy, because I have followed that family for when they were rustic woodworking family.
Yeah.
I've been with them that long, and they were one of the first people that got knitted hats for me. And it has been such a blessing.
Yeah.
To be part of this community.
And a lot of people don't know this about the Eddys. The Eddys had a YouTube meetup. And I think it was in 2022.
Yes.
It was called the Southern Oklahoma YouTube Meetup. And we were one of the, I guess we set up a booth at their meetup. It was inside the Civic Center in Davis, Oklahoma. And I was like you. We were handing out MT Homestead t-shirts, some coffee cups, and stuff like that. And when I got to meet him, and again, I started when they were just a very small channel. I think they had like 2,000 subscribers or whatever. And got to spend a lot of time with Brandon at that meetup. And then, like you, I got to meet all of a sudden who walks in the door, because he lives right down the road and outside of Sulphur, which is down from Davis, is Daniel Arms. And I'm like going, holy crap, in my head. And I just said, you know what? He's just a dude. I've met generals and I've met presidents and stuff like that. And I just walked up to him. I said, can I do an interview with you? and I did an interview with Daniel Arms, and he said, "You're pretty good at that." And I met Dutch, Keeping It Dutch. They were there. The Walker Farm Fam, they were there. All these channels, and it was Cross Timber Bison. They were there. There was a lot of channels there. A lot that were over 100,000 subscribers came there to support the Eddie family, and it was a good time. A little, when you watch them for so long, because we were watching them when we were over in Korea, you're like going, wow, a little starstruck. You get to meet somebody when you're a creator yourself, So I understand what you mean.
Definitely, and everybody was so kind, and helpful. When our tent finally tried to collapse on us, I was like,
Yes.
that thing ain't coming home with us. Nope. And it didn't.
Yeah.
It just wasn't worth it. So I'm looking, do I go and try to buy a new one, or I was looking on Marketplace for some. There was one that I found that has a shelter that's screened in, and I kind of liked that.
Yeah.
You could sit inside and but I know there's no way with the car that I have could I ever pull a little trailer. There's no way.
Right.
But with the oil leak that we're having, it did get better.
Yeah.
We put an additive in it from O'Reilly's, and the smoking has gone down. I'm thinking I've got a ring problem with that engine.
Yeah, I'm just glad you made it home safe.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
My dad taught me how to take care of a car.
Yeah.
We'll baby this one until we can
good.
save up for another one.
Now I will tell you that with everybody that was camping there was the after hour party section. Okay. The after hour party section was involuntarily hosted by White Rock Nation. Okay. All right. When you think of partying, think of White Rock Nation. I'm going to tell you that Tara is one hell of a host. Okay. She made everybody feel comfortable there. Oh, are you hungry? Here, let me stop what I'm doing and go make you a hot dog or make you a sandwich or something like that. And, and I'm just like going, and everybody just felt at home over there at your place. Now, I don't know how much of a cleanup you had to do, but if you were collecting cans, you could have paid your rent after a meetup.
I'm thinking that the next one we're gonna have to do that. We'll have to do separate bins so that we can recycle the cans, and it'll probably pay for our campsite for the weekend.
Yeah.
And that was for us totally unexpected. I knew we were close to the shelter this time, which typically we're not. We will purposely hey, the main event's here. Cool. We're going to go out here. Because both her and I are hey, we can people so long and then we need a break.
Yeah.
But this one, we looked at it and obviously, we knew where everything was. We booked way early and I'm like, hey, that's a pull through spot. That's going to be super easy, but yeah. And so we were packing and she's like, hey, I'm going to take enough food. We've only got a few meals that we've got to eat. And then, we're doing the group meals.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, perfect. And then we get there and all of a sudden, it was after party kicked in.
Yeah.
And we're like, we don't have, and then like we brought home more food than we brought there. I don't even know where it came from. People started just bringing stuff to the camper because like we had fired up the grill, we did this, and they're like, oh, okay, let's just,
Yeah.
And Tara and I both are those people that we're not going to be rude to you. Like if you want to come and hang out, like then we're just, hey, let's expand the fire ring a little bit. We're going to shift the chairs, and we had they were bringing firewood down. I mean, we went down and bought some bundles of firewood. Was like, hey, we'll have a nice quiet fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good thing was the park ranger was cool, and he was very polite when he told us and reminded us of quiet time hours, and we respected him.
Well, I mean, and I talked to him, and he reminded me of that. I said, you do know that everybody here is part of the Mid-America. People that come here were on the other side, and all these spots here was from the Mid-America. He goes, oh, we're going to be very lenient with you, and we're glad you're here and stuff like that. And he didn't go by and go, oh, that plate number didn't pay the $10 or whatever. They just blew that off. Okay. We did, when you do a meetup like that, I mean, that's 179 people that are going to their restaurant somewhere, or they're getting gas somewhere, or they're buying groceries somewhere, or they're buying beer somewhere, and going to all that stuff. And they understand that because they're a resort town. It's a lake town. The city of Eufaula is. So they understand that. I mean, we filled up hotels, for them and stuff like that, which brings tax revenue to the city and so on and so forth. So I think we just put those rules to the side.
I will say though that, with us being close to the shelter, so we had a lot of people parking over, on those multiple campsites, on the camping side, but then they did have it laid out. And I was a little worried at first when we showed up, and I'm like, how's this going to work for parking? Because we've been to other meetups and other sites that don't let a tire touch the grass and don't, but they had that park laid out about as perfect as they could be.
Yeah.
When it came to accommodating for, multiple people being at one site, but then like for that shelter, there was tons of parking. And I think there was one time somebody got blocked in.
I think they blocked the trash receptacle being picked up on Friday. I think it was Friday or Saturday or whatever. The dumpster guy couldn't get in there, but then he didn't do nothing. He said, hey, let me take this at another angle. He grabbed the side of it, dragged it, picked it up, dumped it, and then shoved it back where it's supposed to be. So I said, hey, you're a good man, Gunga Dan.
And they came. So like everybody that was camping, we ended up staying. We just left today. We left this morning from the campground, waiting out some storms. But they came Sunday, or was it Monday morning? But that dumpster by the shelter, because it was the only one, was really, really full.
Yeah.
And the amount of crows and squirrels, like you couldn't leave a bag out and not get picked at. So they actually came through with the pickups and offloaded a bunch.
Yeah.
And, took out, they did that. Do you remember that really big tree as you were leaving by the camp post?
Yeah, it fell.
15 minutes, they had that thing cleaned up and out of there.
Yeah.
So, they did.
Where I was sitting at that round table at the end, I looked up at one of those trees. There was a branch that was hanging down.
Yeah.
But I was like, that looks like as most people say, a widowmaker.
Yeah.
And it didn't come down. I was really surprised with the winds that we were seeing. And I'm like, there was some people under there, and I went over and told them, I says, look up. there's a branch that could be breaking off. So
Yeah.
got hit with that one.
Yeah, back to Good said, what happens at the after party stays at the after party. Yeah. You get to take home some memories. And you know what?
And extra car keys.
Yeah. And I tell people, if you're one that's going there to network and to meet people and to meet other channels and stuff like that, the meetup, the after parties at night and stuff like that is absolutely, it was spot on. It was spot on because we had people from New York. Speaking of, we had people from New York. We had people from Ohio. We had people from Illinois, from Virginia, from Tennessee, from Georgia, from Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alaska, Kansas. Where else did they come from?
Missouri.
And I mean, and probably missed Alabama, the Williamsons vlog. Great family. If you haven't checked their channel out, they're getting started on the YouTube. They were big on TikTok, and now they're on YouTube. And they drove from Alabama to be at the meetup, and everybody was just so welcoming to everybody there. Okay. And where is Greg and Gina from?
New York, up by David. He's muted somehow. Unmute yourself, David. Maybe.
You're still muted.
It says their mic isn't connected. Yeah, he's up by, so Greg and Gina. Greg drove with while David's trying to figure out his technical stuff. Greg carpooled with David and Troy Sutton.
Yeah.
They came out of upstate New York.
Yeah.
I think if I remember, when David, nod yes or no, you and Greg and Gina are like an hour apart. Yeah. So they live about an hour apart, and then they drove down into West Virginia, picked up Troy Sutton, and then carpooled the rest of the way there. And then there was, who did I see that Dawn had put? Oh, we had one from Arizona. Don't forget.
Oh, that's right. The family from Arizona. They were passing through, and they seen on YouTube that we were having a meetup, and they came. We did meet a lady. She came from Florida. She came to Oklahoma to look at properties. And she goes, well, I don't have nothing to do today. And she was going on there, and she typed in homesteading on the YouTube. And she goes, oh, that's not what I wanted. Then she goes, Oklahoma homesteading. And she said the first one that popped up was MT Homestead. And so she was looking at it, she goes, Lake Eufaula, I'm right by you, Lake Eufaula. And then she watched the video, and she's going, holy smokes. So she came out, and she was driving around. She just so happened to stop where we were, because we were like the first ones in there, and we were setting up. And she goes, I just watched you on YouTube. You're Mike and Terry. And I said, wow. I said, yeah. And she told us her story, and she never came back. She said she'd come back on Saturday, but she didn't come back. But she came down, and it's kind of like in 23 when the Gillum Farms.
I was just thinking of the same thing.
Gillum Farms was watching Cosmopolitan Cornbread. And all of a sudden she goes, hey, and so everybody knows I'm not going to be going live at this time. I'm going to be traveling to Oklahoma for the Mid-America YouTube Meetup at Lake 10 Killer, because it was at 10 Killer that year. And the Gillums go, Tenkiller, we live 13 miles from there, you know? And then they came up for the meetup, and that's how the word gets around. You know what I mean? So it's great, and they will tell you, Gillums will tell you, the connections they made really helped grow their channel. You know.
Well, that meetup, I mean, we talk about that exact same meetup because that was our first meetup.
Yeah.
And we had just barely heard about it, probably 2 weeks before it happened, and was able to scramble enough to be able to get a campsite. And yeah, everybody that we know pretty much now within our YouTube family, we got to meet there, or built a better connection through that very first, Mid-America. And it was awesome. I mean, we're always going to be grateful for it. And, Tara and I've said, hey, if there's any meetups that we make sure we get to every year, it's always going to be Mid-America.
Yeah.
Just for that homage of the first one, but it typically is one of the bigger, if not biggest ones of the year to be able to go to that one.
Yeah. Scott Spencer's here, and I want to thank Scott Spencer for this gift he gave me. That is where it's going to go, but up the wall, that's where Terry wants it to hang inside of our house so it can be seen on the camera when we go live and stuff like that. And I want to thank Scott for that. Jason made sure everybody that was supposed to get one that was a veteran that you wanted to give one to, they got it. And then we had the one for the giveaway. And at first I was going to go, okay, if you win this, make sure you give it to a veteran. Then I go, wait a minute, who's the oldest veteran here? Right? And it was Pops. And so we gave that one to Pops. So he has one that he's hauling home. So thank you very much.
And so I'm gonna throw, because anybody that follows and went and watched the cruise video from us, they're gonna realize Pops actually already had one. But here's the cool thing: Pops' brother is also a veteran that actually went over into Vietnam.
Yeah.
And because we went and talked to Pops and we're like, hey, Scott wants to make sure, and Pops is like, no, I'm not keeping it. He wants one for his brother. And if I remember correctly, his brother was a Marine. His brother's a Marine. And so he's taking it home to give it to his brother.
There you go.
Yeah. Wow. So wanted to make sure that did get out there, that yes, because we took one. I got with Scott before we went on the cruise with Pops and had one made for Pops. And then when he got that one, which I love that idea. I was trying to figure out the whole way there of how we were going to do a giveaway with one, because it's like, well, if you're not a veteran, but then do we have to go through the whole realm of drawing tickets for veterans? So I think that approach to it was absolutely perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. It all starts with one video. It's kind of like chickens. Okay. It always starts with one chicken. And then next thing you know, you got 44 laying hens. But guess what? It came in handy for the meetup. Nobody walked away, didn't get scrambled eggs.
Yeah. And that was the other thing, was even with everybody that ended up at our campsite for breakfast, the first morning, I still come home with a ton of eggs. I'm like, we were supposed to be like, psst. But this is what happens when you have a meetup full of homesteaders that have a surplus of eggs, is you never have a shortage.
Yeah. Oh, Tim said you forgot Mississippi. Yep. Mississippi was in the house. In fact, 3 Mississippi and Tim and Dana, they're from Mississippi. They came to the meetup.
And what's Three Mississippi's husband's name?
Mike.
Mike. Okay. I was having difficulty getting the charcoals lit for my brother and I's steaks we were going to have.
Yeah.
And came over and with Troy, not Troy, but oh gosh, James got it lit finally, so that I could cook those porterhouse steaks that I brought for my brother and I. You know, so grateful for their help.
Yeah.
It just would not light. So.
Oh, I didn't know they bought a lake house on Texoma. Okay, that's cool.
Yes, they do. They have an Airbnb that's over there.
I didn't know it was on Lake Texoma though. That's good to know. Let's see. Can you hear us now?
I am back.
There you go.
There you go.
I had to restart my what they shut my microphone. I got you.
Yeah. So you guys, it was you, Greg and Gina, and Troy that came together to the meetup. But you guys stopped off over at DD5, didn't you? Because I just watched the video and I go, wait a minute. I said, there's David talking to David as he was spreading the gravel.
All right. Gina didn't join us because she had to stay home and take care of her mother, and she has some doctor.
Oh, that's right.
So it's just Greg, myself from New York. We're like 25 minutes apart. And then we went to West Virginia and picked up Troy Sutton and brought him with us, and then dropped him off on the way back.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Saturday when we left, I don't know what the storm came out to be at the end, but we left in the afternoon, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, that storm was on our tail all the way out. All the way out. I think we were halfway through Oklahoma before it finally decided, or halfway through Arkansas before it finally decided it's going to take a different path. But
Yeah.
It was right on us. Right on us.
Yeah, that's what Sid and Mike from Three Mississippi said. They were heading that they could just see it in their rearview mirror going into Louisiana and stuff, and they were just ahead of the storm. And I'm going to tell you something. That storm packed 60 plus mile an hour winds, and we had tents that the poles snapped in there. If they were on a ground tent, the poles snapped. If it was laying outside, it was gone. We had a pop-up awning outside of our trailer, and I found it down by the road on the other side of Brian from the Vineyard Farmhouse's campsite. And how it made it through the woods like that and didn't hit someone's vehicle or trailer, I have no idea. And the frame wasn't broke, but the canopy was torn. But the frame's perfectly good. And usually when it bangs into trees, you usually just got a hunk of metal there. So
Right.
I was going, wow, that's pretty scary. So I don't know if it just took it up and it landed over there or what, but I couldn't see where it went through the trees because they were so tight together. So
We actually brought a damaged 10 by 10 canopy with us. And Greg says, well, there's one leg on this canopy that has a bend in it. And as we're setting it up, I found out that the one leg that had the bend in it was the one leg I had a hold of, where I was standing on the bottom of it and trying to pick it up to where it would clip in. This was a 10 by 10.
yeah.
When Greg went to take it down, he grabbed that leg and he went to pull it back down. He ended up breaking the leg off. And he says, I found it in a storage unit. I don't care about it. And I was like, well, I have a welder, but I can't weld that cheap steel. They're made out of such cheap metal. It's not sheet metal. If I welded it back together, it would always be up because you could never bring it down to being normal again. But yeah, he broke it. He took the leg right off of it. And he says, "Well, it's down now."
Yeah.
I loved how Jason just took that person, just like, okay, you know, it was fine. So
Well,
fun.
you know, it happened to be that perfect timing that, you know, Tara and I were standing there together, which happened about 3 times the whole meetup that we even connected. And I was like, oh, there's my wife. I remember what she looked like. And then all of a sudden she's like, hey, somebody had come up and she's like, hey, I got to run back to the camper for something real quick. I was like, okay. And so I'm standing there next to Bill, AK Bill. And he's like, you know, you're going to win this next, you know, this purse coming up, right? And I was like, yeah, of course I will. My wife just walked away. And exactly that time. And I'm like, okay, I just got my man satchel for the guy's fishing trip. And then she came back and I'm like, look what I have. I can fit all my tackle, and it got repoed right away.
You sashayed that down the alley so funny. It was like, oh, I've got a new purse now.
Yeah.
Somebody, I think, put a short or something out or had a video with it. I don't know. I haven't even seen it. We just getting home today. We haven't been able to look up nothing yet.
Right.
And this is what Ronald got.
Yeah. I call those egg collectors.
Yeah.
You put a lot of eggs in that thing once you get out to the hen house.
I don't have chickens, but he can use this when he goes to the farmer's market.
There you go.
No, he don't care that it's right. So I need to get with Beth. I need to get with Beth on how to make these.
I don't do farmers markets. I grow my own.
I certainly do. Are you guys wondering who this blanket's for?
Do I now?
Are you wondering who this blanket's for?
I didn't know that's what you was making.
I'm making.
I thought you were covering up.
No, I'm making a blanket for somebody. They're up in Canada. That's what I'm looking at.
My Wild Home.
No.
Oh wow.
Who else is in the Canadidas?
Jennifer?
No.
Creekside Maples?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Well, they're in Canada. They need lots of blankets, so.
Oh yes.
There is Anna Bohr.
Hi, Robin.
Hey, Rebecca, you should make a blanket like that for Bill from Alaska.
I'm planning on it. Now he's gonna know.
It's cold there. When it goes winter, they don't even have sunlight.
Oh, they don't.
Yeah, that was kind of unexpected. I knew that Sid had talked. Well, Chrissy over at Paragon Ridge Ranch had said she was coming to the meetup, and then she forgot because she's starting a hatchery and all kinds of stuff on their ranch, and she sidetracked that the meetup was this week, and so Sid said, you got to be there. If I'm coming all the way to Oklahoma, you have to come down the highway from where they live to the meetup, which is an hour or something away. That's it. And so she goes, we'll try to make it. We'll try to make it. And then they showed up. And what I wasn't expecting, that Jason Crocker came with them. And I haven't seen Jason, oh man, how long? Since the 2023 Mid-America. He came to that one. And he showed up and got to see Chrissy. It was always good to see Chrissy. They live right down Indian Highway from us, about a little, maybe an hour away, a little over an hour away. And you would think that when people live that close, you'd see them more often. It's kind of like Biddy Boo Brown's homestead. She lives 26 miles from us, and it's even hard because life takes over. You know what I mean? Life takes over, and it has to go to a meetup just to even see the people that live closest to you, and that's crazy.
Well, yeah, that's us with Big D and Dawn is 25 minutes away, and
they might as well be in another state.
Yeah, but we hang out more when we go 2-3 states away.
Yeah.
Just because we're so busy. I mean, we talk all the time of, hey, what's going on, what's here, what's there, and but of course when she's got a herd of kids, she's always out doing something. So
oh yeah, and she's a scoutmaster on top of all that.
Right.
Oh, here you go. Next time, bring your own BYOS. Bring your own storm shelter.
Evidently, the Squatch is a great storm shelter because
you didn't even know there was a storm.
Yeah, we were up pretty late. I mean, there was a series of storms that came in, and they were like, okay, we're not bad. We were holding up the one like pop-up screen we had out there. And everything kind of calmed down, got quiet hours. So we were like, all right, hey, we're going to wind the fire down. Everyone started heading back, and we're like, well, that must be it. We're good to go. Went to bed, woke up in the morning and came out and having coffee. And they're like, of course, we seen Pops' canopy flipped over his camper.
Yeah.
And branches down and stuff like that. And they started wandering down. I know Auntie Ann came down and she's like, hey, her husband Mike went out there at like 1 a.m. and was like making sure their canopy. We had our canopy out, lights hooked to it, had the extra shelter. Nothing moved.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it stormed really bad. We walked out of the camper having coffee and we're like,
3 o'clock in the morning when that storm hit, because we were in a little trailer that we rented. And that sucker, I mean, I thought I was riding a bull, and it was just rocking. And I'm going, oh my gosh, what's going on out there?
Really?
And I opened up the thing and almost ripped the door off the freaking travel trailer, the little camper that we rented. And I grabbed a hold of that and I closed it. I said, well, I ain't going out in that thing, because that's when the heavy cell hit and knocked over the trees and stuff like that.
Well, park. I guess between you and Terry being there and then Tony and Angie, you guys just took the brunt of it, and it softened it for us because we had no clue it stormed.
And I think Tony said the same thing. They didn't even know a storm was going on. And because they have a big old travel trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I know is I had to wake up Ronald because that side of the tent was trying to come in. And we were sitting there, and I'm just praying like crazy. Lord, protect us. He did.
Rebecca, hold your ears. But
I'm an adult.
You know Big D, right?
Yes.
Big D is a soft-spoken man.
Oh, yeah, I heard him yell.
Until 70-mile-an-hour winds come through and the tent collapses. I was sitting there, I was listening. All of a sudden, I heard someone go, roar, roar, roar. I said, what the heck was that? And the next morning, I talked to Don. She goes, oh, that was Big D. When he has something to say, he'll say it.
Yeah, I heard that. I'm like, yeah, they're going to get in their vehicle. I was like praying for them and praying for us that we weren't going to get hurt, and we didn't.
Yeah.
Got wet, but didn't get hurt.
Oh, well, I heard a lot of areas got hit with a lot of hail too, right?
My car, when we went through Arkansas, was pelted with some hail, and all I'm saying is don't break my sunroof on my car, and it didn't, or the windshield.
Yeah.
I'll just keep on driving.
So when we came back, we were watching the storm in our back window, and Greg was driving at the time, and he's like, I don't care what the speed limit is. I'm looking in the back window. I'm watching this small storm coming through, and this was early. This was like 4:30, I think, somewhere around there on Saturday.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of it. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I don't want to be in any part of it. I'm done. And then when we made it over into Arkansas, it was kind of like behind us then. And I changed drivers with him because he was tired. I don't know why he got so tired so quick. And I drove through almost half of Arkansas, pretty much all of Tennessee. He did take over for a little while for about an hour, and then I had to take the wheel back again. And I drove from there, I think it was like the outside of Nashville. I drove from there into West Virginia and halfway through Virginia before we dropped Troy off and drove halfway through Virginia before I finally said, you know what? He looked at me, he said, how you doing? I said, my butt is like stiff. I need to get up and walk around a bit.
Yeah.
I need to get up and walk around. It's a 24-hour drive with stopping for gas and food. That's a 24-hour drive. And on the way down, he did the blunt.
Yeah. So Leanne, the tornadoes that came through yesterday.
Yeah.
My granddaughter lives 7 miles to the south of us in a little town called Wardville. There was a tornado, and the storm chasers, they had that tornado on the TV, and it started to the southwest of the city of Colgate, and it came through that direction, went just with about a mile or so from my granddaughter's house where she lives. And then the storm chasers actually filmed it when it went over Highway 69. And then the cameras from the power plant that had just missed caught it on the security cameras, and they filmed that going across. Then it hit the little town of Blanco, which is Spanish for white, and tore the holy crap out of that little farm town. And then it went over to Wilburton, and then it popped up before it went past Wilburton up into the clouds again. So it was on the ground for almost 70 miles. And then there was another one just to the north of us. So we were like in the middle of them. And so nothing happened here. We just had heavy rain, heavy winds. I do know that we were looking out the window, and first of all, that lightning storm that went on, it was crazy on Monday. And the lightning struck right outside there. Dude, I didn't know I had PTSD when that thing landed right outside of our window, and it was like, like an artillery round going off. I go, whoa, like this. And the dogs ran to their kennels. They hid in the kennel. But I've never been that close to a lightning strike. And I couldn't find where it hit. And if it hit at all, I don't know. Because we live in a big metal-sided house with a metal roof. So I'm going, man, I didn't even feel it. But that concussion, I felt that through the window. That was weird. But we got a lot of rain and a lot of wind.
I would think being in a metal house with a metal roof, if you had her, it would have been standing on them.
Yeah. Oh, Rainy,
I went out because we were still at the campground yesterday for all that, because we were watching it come in, and I'm like, hauling that big old camper down the road, and I'm not doing it. We're going to just stay an extra day, let them pass. But yeah, there was a couple different times I went out in the field and in the shelter where we did the meetup, and was just sitting there watching it. And I mean, it was going, the lightning went in every direction it could.
Yeah.
And stayed like it was like a streak, but it was like it lasted longer than what it normally would. It was, I should have filmed it and I didn't, but it was pretty impressive.
I'm going to tell you, everybody's going to remember the meetup of 2025 from the storm.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's got to rain at least one day during a meetup. But we gave you guys the bonus package. Okay, we wanted the whole Oklahoma experience.
The blessing in that was the storm predictions had it going all weekend.
Yeah.
You know, and I know we got there Thursday, it was beautiful. We got there Friday, beautiful. And up until Saturday, evening, really, because I think nothing really happened until after dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was early Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking for Terry. I said, Terry, where are you at? And all of a sudden I hear her. She goes, I'm in the storm shelter. I said, oh, this ain't bad. I said, I ain't heard no train yet.
We were right next door to Leonard Mountain Homestead, I think it is, with Amy and Chris. And they were planning on staying. And I was like, well, we got 2 bundles of firewood. We'll leave you. And I was like, but you know, there is a storm coming through, right? And she says, yeah, I know. And they got like their camper, a tent, another tent, another tent. There's a whole bunch of them. She says, well, if the storm gets too bad, we're just going to go sit in the bathroom. And I'm like, the bathrooms are pretty good sized.
Yeah.
But you're talking probably shoving 15 people into 2 bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, the storms don't scare me. I mean, I will tell you, I'm right with Jesus. Okay? So it's got to be better than life on earth. I mean, I can't say nothing else. I mean, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
And you would think the amount of people that actually die in Oklahoma would be from tornadoes would be astronomical, and it's not.
No.
You know, unless an F5 comes through, like they've had in Moore, Oklahoma, that picks up a whole school and destroys it, a brick building. You know, F4s and F5s, I mean, those are people killers. And it is just, and I don't think that even if you live in a house in an F4, because if you've seen videos of Moore, Oklahoma after the F5 comes through there, all it is concrete slabs. There's nothing else, you know. And when a tornado is, 5 and 6 miles wide, there's no running from it.
No.
There's no running from something like that. So just get yourself right. Do all your precautions. If you live in Oklahoma and you don't have a storm shelter, I don't know what you're waiting on. That should be put in before your septic tank. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Or be part of it.
Well, and that was our big deciding factor, when we were sitting, because we were going to leave out of the campground yesterday, and they were calling for the more storms than the one that hit, for 60, 70 miles. And then I'm like, I don't want to be on the road and then not have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
At least in the campground, we went 100 yards, and there's the bathrooms and they're all concrete structures. So, if it got hairy enough, and we stayed up not as late as the other nights, but we stayed up fairly late last night to make sure everything calmed down.
No 2:30 in the morning poker.
No.
Well, here's the one thing that kind of there is no bunker system in the state parks.
No. Other than the bathrooms, no.
Yeah, there's none. But we didn't even see this storm coming. I mean, it popped up, and that's the way it is in Oklahoma. All of a sudden, boom, take shelter, boom. I mean, the way those storms, because we're in the key area where that cold wind from the top, from the north, comes down cooler, and then that warm air is coming up from Texas. And for some reason, those two SOBs want to meet right here in Oklahoma and have a party.
And it's a party.
Let's have a meetup in Oklahoma right there. Boom. And that's where they mix up, and that's when it gets hairy. So yeah.
Well, we were watching on the way down Kansas. Or no, Kentucky. They got hit really hard with a really bad tornado.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wiped out multiple towns, and I think it was only like 23 people were dead. Multiple hurt, but the multiple hurts were just like simple things like, got slapped with a stick kind of thing. It wasn't anybody like going to the hospital and needing surgical care or whatever. It was minor injuries.
There's people that say, why do you live in the Midwest? You got tornadoes. Okay, why do you live in Florida? You have hurricanes every year. Or why do you live out in California or up in the Northwest where you burn down half the state every year? Every place has got their bad weather or whatever. And it's just, my thing was, and I told Terry this, everybody's going to remember this meetup just from the storms. And if you're in a tent, you are never going to forget this meetup.
That's why we left early.
Well, and that was the thing. We've talked about it before, was, having the camper and stuff, and I'll own being bougie. I'll own it, because the last time I went tent camping, I woke up to about 12 inches of water in the entire campground, and everything was flooded. And I'm like, no, I'm not in the Marine Corps anymore. I don't need to live outside and sleep on the ground and do all those things, And I get that not a lot of people have the opportunity or the ability to get a camper.
Right.
But, like Tara and I talked about it, and I said, fine. If we don't have a camper to be able to go somewhere and do something, there's always hotel rooms. There's Airbnbs. There's ways. I'm not sleeping in a tent. I have the option of not to, and I'm going to utilize it, because it's, you never know the weather. And even if you can watch the weather outlook and all that, something's going to pop in at some point. And there's nothing worse than ruining what, is a great weekend by now you're taking everything home soaked, and you're driving multiple hours to get there, and then have to get out and drag all that stuff out in your yard and try to dry it all out. No. That's not.
Leon and I have a little 18-foot camper.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what the Nugget was. It's a little 18-foot camper. And we went a year without having a truck to pull it with, because my truck was in the shop.
Right.
But I told her, I said, if you want to go somewhere, well, the truck is in the shop. We're not taking a tent. I did do one party that I went to because it was a friend of mine's, and I figured a tent was the best thing to take with me. But other than that, no, we had a motel room or whatever,
Right.
And we did that. We did that a lot, because it doesn't make sense to me, as Jason said, to sleep in a tent. We're not on bivouac.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm glad everybody came in tonight. Again, next year, 2026, in Sergeant's Talk TV, will have a presence at the 2026 meetup at Lake Texoma. We didn't even talk about the giveaway for the cornhole board that we sponsored. for the meetup. Our friends over at Drew's Lens, he won that. For a while there, it was just veterans. Our finals were what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4 veterans. No, 3 veterans, and Drew and the Eddie's oldest boy from Eddie Family Farm. They were the final ones on there, and Drew, the last round, the 5th round, he's the only one that hit a cornhole, and he won the board. Congratulations to him. It was a beautiful board. Okay. And our friend Thor over at KNK Traveling, everybody write that down. K, then the N and K Traveling was the maker of that board. And he contacted me and he said, if we want to give away another board at the next meetup, he will make that happen for us. So, and we'll probably, this next one, we'll make it a Marine Corps board. Okay, we already gave Army one away. Right. So we can give away a Marine Corps board. Jason, think about how you want that thing to look. It's going to have the Marine Corps
Eagle, globe, and anchor.
And however you want, if you want a flag on there or whatever you want, we'll get that to him, and then he can make that for us, and we can give that away at the Texoma meetup for Mid-America. So anyway, guys, I want to thank everybody for coming in here. Remember, be kind to one another, help somebody in need, and always think of that. Guys, we love you. God bless you. God bless our veterans that are in here, their family members, and all those that support veterans. Guys, we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.
Don't forget, we need to thank Scott for coming up with those windows.
Yeah, we did. Scott did a great job on those windows.
They were awesome.
Any closing words there, Battle Buddy?
Just like every week, guys, appreciate every one of you coming in here, supporting us. Get the word out. Let's help support some other veterans. They've earned it. They deserve it. And we all owe them a huge amount of gratitude. So,
yes,
thanks y'all for coming in, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Good night, folks.